everybody in, and thank you. Thanks for your help.
Evening, everybody.
Hey, Doug,
Hi, Doug.
How are you all?
just living it for a Monday night. How about yourself?
Did you say just living it?
Just living it, just living
Yeah.
the dream.
Living
yeah.
large.
All right, we're all good to go. I can read my spiel.
Yep.
Read
Okay.
just feel.
Good evening. This is a meeting of Scituate Conservation Commission on, this is a review of meeting procedures. On June 16th, 2021, Governor Baker signed into law an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. This act includes an extension until April 1st, 2022, the remote meeting provision of the March 12th, 2020 executive order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. They hereby advise that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Scituate in accordance with our open meeting law. So we're closing in on April 1st. which-
Makes me nervous.
That you're gonna have to come back to a meeting, Penny?
Yeah,
Oh, come on. So do
That'd
we
be
have
fun.
any, do we have any agenda, any additions or changes to the agenda?
Yeah, Frank, at the end, I was gonna add, ratify, few enforcement orders.
Okay. And I also just wanted to, if we have time tonight, we had bring up to speed a little bit on the Damon access. So if somebody wants to make a motion,
I make a motion. We accept the agenda with the add-on of the Damon property
and the
in,
enforcement ratification.
in the enforcement ratification letter. Yeah,
Thank you, Penny. How about a second?
Second from Jen.
Thank you, Jen. All in favor, Richard,
Yes.
Doug,
Yep.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan.
Yes,
Great, thank you. All right, we want to start with 22 Oceanside.
seawall.
This is the town of Scituate. We have a representative from Forth. And do we have anybody from the DPW?
Yeah, Sean McCarthy's on the call, so if you just read the public hearing notice, and I'll unmute.
On January 24th at 5:30 PM in the town hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under chapter 131, section 40 of the Mass General Laws and section 30700 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of the town of Scituate for work related to reconstruction of approximately 1,400 linear feet of existing concrete seawall and stone revetment located north of Oceanside Drive and Turner Road between cross streets of Kenneth and Scituate Avenue, 22 Oceanside Drive to 151 Turner Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend, and information on this virtual meeting will be available on the agenda posted on the website. Hi, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Sean McCarthy. I work for the Scituate DPW. And before you tonight is a proposal to replace, as stated, almost 1,400 linear feet of seawall. This will continue. We did a recent repair across from Kenneth 2 or 3 years ago, and this will continue on marching southward. There is currently no funding in place to do this work. We did just recently last week apply for a grant from the Dam and Seawall from the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. We've been successful in obtaining grant money from that department at the state level. So what we'd like to do is have our permits in hand to be able to put something out to bid and then follow with construction. We typically try to replace between 300 and 400 feet of seawall at a time. That's around $3 million mark, which is what the grant would cover. With all this talk about states being flooded with additional monies, we wanted to be sure we were in place to do more if more money was available. We like to have our permits. The state likes to see a shovel-ready projects. They don't want to wait the 6-7 months for permitting before the project can get started. So we're trying to get our ducks in a row to replace this 1,400 feet. As I say, it'll probably happen in sections, 300 or 400 foot sections. The grant requires no match. So the maximum is $3 million right now that they offer. And we're trying to have our ducks in a row to make this replacement happen. We would probably start at the northernmost section of the project. That way we can continue on where we left off. To the south of this, I know there's been some discussion about why the end point, was selected. And we've been working with the Army Corps. They've been doing a Cap 103 hurricane study from Scituate Ave down to Rebecca. So they're looking at the replacement of that seawall. We did want to try to make some improvements to access, handicapped accessibility. And that's why we included the access at Scituate Ave so that we could try to get that done if we moved faster than them. That's the reason for the selection endpoint. And Jeremy Packard from Foth Engineer, the design engineers for this project, is also on. If you have some detailed questions on the design and the permitting process, Jeremy's here to help answer those questions.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
Jeremy, do you want to add anything to what Sean had to say before we go to members?
Yeah, I can jump into it. I had a couple notes I wanted to hit, so I'll give my spiel on it as well. Sean hit it pretty good. We're looking to replace existing concrete seawall and stone revetment. It's just under 1,400 linear feet that we're going for and order conditions for right now. As Sean had mentioned, it's not likely that the entire 1,400 feet will be reconstructed at any one time. That'll be based on the funding available. So the northern limit matches into the we call it the 11th to Kenneth seawall. It's the seawall that was capped at the town lot just north of this site. And the idea is to match the same crest elevation with that seawall at the 19-foot elevation and run that all the way down the length of this project. So that 19-foot crest elevation reflects an increase of height of anywhere from about 2 to 3 feet within our project area that we have right now. It's like a 2-foot increase from the northern end, and then it varies, but generally it's more of a 3-foot increase down at the southern end. That is, except for that 150-foot section in front of 0 Oceanside, the 150-foot section that was previously repaired by Northern Construction. That's currently at 18. And so what we'll do there is we'll just cut off the recurve section and dowel in and raise that and just put a new cap on that to match the 19-foot elevation. So like I said, reinforced concrete seawall. Sean had mentioned that we've been doing these kind of marching south. We've started up in the north. Since I've been involved in these seawall projects, we've done the 4th to 6th wall, the 7th to 10th wall, which actually extended down to 11th Avenue. And then we did the 11th to Kenneth seawall overlay and did our revetment out in that area too. So we've done probably 1,400 or 1,500 feet of seawall and stone revetment in this area already. And like you said, just keep on kind of marching south. By the time we get down to this section, we'll go and start back up the north again. And so the existing revetment. So I talked about the seawall a little bit in the geometry there. The existing revetment is proposed to be reconstructed using 10 to 12 ton granite armor stone. They're about 5 or 6 foot diameter, if you want to say that, stones. Big stone revetment, and that's built in a it's a gradation. We build up with bedding stone and go to an intermediate layer before you have the armor stone on top. Intermediate layers are wrapped in geotextile, so you don't have any loss of the smaller material through the voids in the structure. The revetment starts at elevation 12 at the face of the seawall and extends down a 30-foot offset. What we're proposing right now is a 30-foot offset from the face of the wall down to the top of the toe stone, which is at elevation -1, with a 5-foot stone and a top elevation of -1. We're talking about a bottom elevation of the toe stone at about -6. And the idea of the stone revetment is for toe protection of the seawall. It's much less for breaking up wave energy as it is for just protecting the concrete seawall and the toe of that seawall itself from any kind of storm damage that might occur. So right now, the existing stone revetment in front of the seawall ranges anywhere from, it's like 20 to 34 feet offset from the face of the wall, depending on where you are in the project. Now, all of these walls have existed since the early 1900s. Some of the early record plans that we see from these are from the 1930s, constructed from the Massachusetts DPW when that was still a thing. So all the structures are licensed. The Chapter 91 license, those historic plans serve as the Chapter 91 license for the structures. And so because of the variability in the revetment seaward of the wall, and like I said, ranging from anywhere from 20 to 34 feet, we propose to just construct a single uniform revetment similar to the walls we've done to the north for this section of the project. So like I said, 30 foot consistent offset is what we're looking for. And we have a request for a minor modification to the Chapter 91 license in front of DEP right now, as well as a request for advisory opinion in front of MIPA. And I anticipate kind of coordinating that offset with them. I see that as being one of the biggest questions from the regulators on this project. So just some more about the permanent work that we're proposing. In the past, on the projects to the north, we've proposed, we called it a splash pad. It was like smaller stone, 2 to 3 ton stone that we would install almost like a patio behind or landward of the seawall to alleviate any type of erosion from the overwash during the storms. We've had mixed results from that. Some of the bigger storms or the significant overwash, we're actually seeing some movement of those and displacement of those, what we thought were good sized stones. And so we're kind of workshopping that a bit. And with this project, what we're looking to do is install a concrete mattress 10 feet off the back of the wall. And that concrete mattress would be subgrade, or would put a couple inches below the sand on the back of the wall, and we would attach it to the wall with eye bolts, right? And so you wouldn't actually see it; it would just be exposed if there were a significant storm event with heavy overwash, and where it would be causing erosion and maybe causing some pockets of loss of material on the back of the wall. We're hoping to combat that with this concrete mattress that we lay down in the back of it, again below grade. Below the concrete mattress would be like a crushed stone, almost like a French drain system that would be wrapped in geotextile, and connected to that French drain system are scuppers, basically, that allow the passage of the stormwater and the overwash back through the front of the wall. So that's how we're really looking to alleviate any kind of water being trapped by the wall or any kind of erosion issues in the area. As Sean had mentioned, we have 2 beach access points in the project. The northern access is across from, I think it's just a paper street, Wampatuck Way. But either way, the northern access is where we're just proposing to reconstruct the existing staircase that's there, concrete staircase. No ADA accessible considerations on that one. But on the southern end of the project, adjacent to or across the street from the end of Scituate Avenue, is where we are proposing a full ADA accessible ramp extending from Turner Road all the way to basically to the beach, right? So that ramp would be on a 1-on-20 grade. All the way from Turner Road, and it'll get you through down to the beach. At when it goes through the seawall, it goes to 1-on-12, but then we have a handrail attached to the seawall that meets accessibility guidelines. So do have some accessibility considerations in there. During construction, I'll talk a little bit about that. The town is currently coordinating with homeowners for easements for the project, as they've done in the projects to the north. They understand that each individual homeowner is gonna have the choice basically to allow an easement for the town. And I don't really want to speak to this too much. This might be more a conversation for Sean, but I just want to note that the easements will be coordinated and sought after for each individual property, and homeowners are not going to be forced to give that easement. You know, a lot of them, it would be a good idea to, but that would be up to each individual homeowner. And then once the project's underway, the contractor, to start the project, they do a full existing condition survey of not only the land and the structure itself to be replaced, but the abutting homes as well, right? So even as far as going inside and taking pictures of drywall, you know, any kind of features that are outside the homes, retaining walls, patios, decks, you know, structural items, whatever it may be, the contractor does a full survey of that, and works with the homeowner on the temporary impacts that are going to happen at their home specifically. And it kind of becomes a dialogue of you know, what the homeowner is going to look for after the project's done, and the contractor will tell them what they're going to need during construction. And it really turns into because these homes are so close to the seawall and they're working in such a tight proximity for an extended period of time, it really becomes a case where they have no choice. They really have to have that relationship with the homeowners, and kind of that give and take, you know, understanding that we're going to be in their backyard for a little bit of time. It's a pretty major project. So the contractors will work with the homeowners directly. The contractor is also responsible for the design of the temporary shoring of the project, right? So any kind of like slide rail systems, or you know, driven sheet piles to hold back the excavation, whatever the excavation, the temporary shoring design is for the excavation itself for the seawall is one of the first submittals that we look for from the contractor. So the contractor is required to basically hire their own geotechnical and structural engineers, assess the site conditions, and propose a system for the temporary shoring for the entirety of the project. They submit that to us in the town, we review, you know, provide any comments, and ultimately that is stamped by a licensed engineer working on behalf of the contractor. So temporary shoring is still is something that'll be decided during construction. We have 3 staging areas proposed for the project right now, or three staging areas are currently identified. One being the existing town lot to the north in front of Kenneth Ave. And then the other 2 are the lots that are in front of both the public accesses, right? So one at Wampatuck and the other at across from Scituate. And those are the 3 that we're including in the bidding of the project, or that we would plan to include. The contractor would, it's really up to them. They can work with homeowners and try to come up with their own staging areas, something that might work better for them if they choose to. But as far as what's being bid in the project, it's those three staging areas. As far as when they actually start the project, right? So they never say they're doing 400 feet as part of one single construction contract. They never open up or demo 400 feet at a time. Right? So they'd open, you know, demo maybe 100-foot sections, and even when they're doing that demo, they make sure marine contractors are aware. They make sure they look at the long-term forecast, marine forecast. If there's any kind of weather coming in, any significant storms, they'll make sure that they get everything kind of tightened up before the storms come in. Placement of temporary stone, whatever it may be. But what I was trying to get across there was they don't just demo the whole 400 feet at a time. They do kind of work in sections where they'll demo a couple, say 100 feet, and then they'll pour a footing on one section and a stem on another section, and they'll prep the footing on another section, and they just kind of leapfrog it all the way down, right? And that way you're never too exposed at any one given time. In the town, the guys over the DPW and engineering department, they're really familiar with this type of work. And, if there's any kind of weather coming in, they make sure, and, us too, we're always on the phone with the contractor, a lot of coordination. Hey, you guys see that storm coming, make sure we're, everything's safe and moved out of the way for that. And, just to make sure there's no unexpected damage. After construction is completed, the contractors are required to restore all properties, public and private, right? So that'd be restoration of the staging areas that the town owns, as well as restoration of any of the private homes that were affected. And that could be anything from replacing the decks, patios, anything that was damaged during that time. Just a full restoration of all properties that were affected during the reconstruction. Sean mentioned a little bit about the timing. We went for 4 grant applications. We submitted those last week. We'll see what comes in with that, and the timing will really be based off the funding at this point. Permitting considerations. So obviously we're requesting an order of conditions from the Scituate Conservation Commission now. We also have a minor modification request in front of DEP. We're required to file a 401 water quality cert for the dredging and the fill below mean high water due to the revetment construction. So our 401 water quality cert from DEP. We've submitted a request for advisory opinion to MEPA. So we'll see what they say about any kind of future submittals for it, and also an Army Corps self-verification will be submitted. So some more. This is really our first step on the path to permits here. Resource areas affected. This is the last part. Resource areas affected are land subject to coastal flowage, of course, coastal beach, and then we also have a section of mapped barrier beach, which is coastal beach and coastal dune. Both of which are already developed. There's no pristine barrier beach out here, as I think most people know. So that's it. That was my spiel.
Thank you. Sean, before we go into the commission members, do you want to add anything to that, or just? I think Sean's muted. Sorry.
I'll unmute him. I can find him.
Or maybe not. There we go.
There we go.
I think the two of us covered it pretty well, but I'd love to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Great. Thank you, Sean. Richard, why don't you, or Amy, do you want to weigh in on this first?
Sure, I'd love to. Yeah, so obviously a really, really important town project for our foreshore protection plan for the town. Complicated, lots of steps. Clearly, they will get orders, from us. I would like to make sure before we close that there aren't any requirements or like suggestions from the interagency review that will happen that Jeremy's already submitted for. So those should be coming forthwith. And it'll be a great improvement for flood control and storm damage prevention, particularly. And I'm just one question for Sean. I was just wondering if the town gets MS4 credit for any of these improvements and for stormwater discharge.
There won't be any stormwater per se improvements as part of this project.
Okay, so the new wall doesn't somehow like filter the water that's up against the sea going in?
Well, it will, just because of the design. In terms of getting credit for it from the EPA, I'm not sure they're focusing on point discharges more than anything, the outfall type discharges,
Okay.
right directly into the harbor or things like that.
Okay, all right, yeah, so Their comments, their file comments were just that chapter 91, 401 and BEPA were required. So those are underway. And yeah, turn it back to you, Frank.
Okay, thank you. Richard, do you have any questions or comments?
No, not at this time, Frank.
Okay. Doug?
No, looks like a good project. I'm sure the residents there will be very happy to see that seawall beefed up, helping protect their properties. A nice, very thorough presentation. So there's nothing left to be asked on my end.
Okay, thank you. Penny?
Yeah.
Penny, any thoughts on that one?
You're
Or
on,
just-
Penny.
Or how about Jake?
Jake has lots of thoughts. No, I think it was a very good presentation. He covered everything thoroughly. All good. All good. Thank you.
Jen?
No, I'm good for now. Thank you.
Andy?
My questions were answered. Thanks.
Brendan?
I am good. Thank you.
We're gonna see if there's anybody in the audience for this. I have one quick one before we get to that. These mattresses, are they something that was used before, or is this something new on this project? I just don't remember seeing those in past seawall projects, either Sean or Jeremy.
Yeah, no, we haven't used them on past seawall projects. But we have, I've done a fair amount of research on the literature on them, and they do seem to be applicable specifically to this situation where you have that periodic overwash and erosion protection. It's really, including those in the project is a result of just us trying to come up with a good system that's going to work environmentally, allow water to flow freely, but also provide some kind of protection from that overwash. And we can find products that are, that use, all galvanized hardware, to stop any kind of corrosion on the connections, and, similarly with the eye bolts, and just thinking it through, we thought it might be a pretty good solution for it. So we'd like to give it a shot.
So these are like independent pieces. Roughly how long are they each? Are they something that's precast or?
Yeah, they're precast. They're like precast strips, and they come in different configurations. But they're all like interconnected with like some kind of like galvanized, I don't want to say wire, but basically galvanized steel that and it just creates like a blanket, basically, right? And you can order them in whatever size and width you want, as you can imagine, right? They're just, they'll build whatever you need. And then the idea is just to have them connect at the back of the seawall with the eye bolts, kind of come up with a solid connection for those, and have them just extend that 10 feet back behind the wall. And again, stay below grade, right? So it wouldn't be anything on top that you would see below grade, and you would just see the sand that's out there now is really all you would see until the storms hit, overwash comes and maybe exposes them. And then the idea is that they just hold down all the French drain and the crushed stone and the geotextile we have all on the back of that wall for drainage.
Thank you.
Sure.
Do we have anybody in the audience? Questions on this?
Let's see, somebody, if you want to raise your hand to participate, can do that now. And that's with that feature on the screen.
We have at least one I see.
Yeah,
Lewis.
Lou Cassis, I'm gonna unmute him.
Hello,
Good evening. And if you'd like to state your name and address,
Yeah.
please.
my name is Louis Cassis, and I'm one of the owners of 127 Turner Road. And my family's been there since 1960, been there 62 years now. And I can remember a long time ago, it was called Sand Hills. It was all sand on the beach. There's no sand anymore on the beach. It's all rocks. And I remember the original seawall when we bought the house, the beach was very sandy. And then the wall that's there now was probably built in the late 60s, maybe. And that's when the granite stones started to appear. And I know Jeremy calls it a revetment, but all I see is they threw granite rocks down there. A revetment to me is something like you see in the harbor, where in the harbor parking lot, where it's built with some sort of precision that directs the water, back without scouring the beach. And as far as I can see, what was done in the 1970s or the late 60s with those rocks created all the rabble that's on the beach now and took away all the sand. And I think if we're going to throw rocks back down there again, is that the plan?
I don't know whether Sean or Jeremy wants to elaborate on that.
Yeah, I can jump in for that a little bit. So you're right. The rocks now, the stones now, it does all look like just a jumble, like they were just thrown over the wall and left there, right? And that's probably due to storm damage over time.
Well, Jeremy, it's always been like that. There's never been, they were never in any kind of order or good shape. They've been like that for 30 or 40 years.
Right. So if you look at the walls a little to the north, like even the one that we just did was the 11th to Kenneth wall right in front of the town lot there. And I don't know if you saw when that was being constructed, but that had a much more put together, 3-to-1 slope, embedded toe stone, like more like a properly built revetment like we like to see. So the intent on this project is to build the revetment with the slope, 7-foot elevation at the top at the wall, -1 at the top of the toe stone, smooth slope, well placed stones. We don't like to see the contractors dumping stones over the wall and kind of moving it around to get the shape. We like to see the stones individually placed so they're interlocked, 3 points of contact, acting as a cohesive structure. Right. So it's not just a jumble of rocks piled over the front that we're going for in our project anyway. And I understand. And then as far as the starving of the sand, that is something, and it's not just due to this area. It's basically, if you look at the entire shoreline, all the way from from Hingham all the way down until you get to Plymouth, it's really all been armored, right? And you do see that starvation of the sediment over time.
Minot Beach is very sandy compared to our beach.
Comparatively, just to the north of that revetment is.
And also, if you go towards Riddle's Market, if you go south, where there's less revetment, there's way more sand.
Right. And that is an unintended consequence of the work that was done 60s and 70s, and now we do struggle with that, right? It's like, do we because I could come before the commission and propose to take down that seawall, right? Let's take down the seawall. Let's put a sand berm out there, and it's going to last maybe a week. Maybe that sand berm will last 1 week.
I'm not saying that, but it looks to me like the revetment is what causes the sand to leave.
Yeah, you're right. You are right about that.
So why have a revetment?
Actually, can I jump in for a second? I'm not sure. We got a couple other hands up, but the being a liaison to the sea level rise and going to a number of meetings, listening to different coastal geologists, what Jeremy alluded to a little bit was the starvation of these beaches from sediment. So before there was a lot of revetments, the ocean would scour away portions of something further north, and that sediment would be deposited in front of these properties, and it continued to move southerly. With all the foreshore protection that's occurring, because there's a number of homes in front of it, there's not as much sediment available to build up these beaches. And you mentioned Minot Beach, and the commission actually approved a project for beach nourishment. At some point, we hope that there'll be a dredge project or something else substantial that more sand can be added, because we're seeing the sand just be eroded away. And at this point, Minot Beach now, the base of the seawall is exposed in many areas, which is fairly dangerous. And maybe Jeremy or Sean wants to speak to that a little bit more, but I think one of the purposes of this revetment in front of that is that the footings for these seawalls are protected, because when they get eroded, then they collapse. And we saw that happen in Duxbury last year. It was pretty disastrous. So you're trying to protect that footing and make sure that that doesn't get undermined. Maybe I've misspoken a little bit, but happy to hear.
You're
from
exactly
Sean.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand that, but you're the experts, not me. I'm just telling you what I see. And what I see is that wherever the revetment is where the beach gets scoured. And maybe the revetment can be less than it is now, because right now it's out 30, 40 feet.
The concern would be that if the seawall weren't there, or there's less of a seawall, that material would actually be coming from under your home, which nobody wants to have happen.
No one's saying there shouldn't be a seawall there. If you look down to the south, there's no stones, no revetment, and there's more sand. So it's clear that the revetments are causing the sand to leave. It's just an observation.
We can speak to a geologist about that, but I kind of differ with that. I think that there's just a southern migration of sand, and it pools in certain areas. And but I'm not a geologist. We've been looking at these projects.
When I was a kid, I could jump off the seawall into the sand.
And there was plenty of sand. You could walk halfway out to the rocks and mine it. And this is a concern. It's a combination of sea level rise, changes in the ocean. One of our former conservation agents was a coastal geologist, took a lot of time to explain the situation that's happening here. And ideally, we would be seeing beach nourishment projects, but the magnitude of sand that has to be brought here, there'd be trucks backed up in Scituate for forever, just dumping sand in front of here. And I think in Hammerock, we talked about the possibility of a berm, because Hammerock's a barrier beach. So that functions a little bit differently, but I'm happy to, maybe Jeremy or Sean can reach out a little bit and get a little bit of input from your observation with the sand. But I'd be hard pressed to think that that revetment in front of the wall is the cause of that. But maybe you guys can come up with something, Jeremy. To answer.
I mean, you really nailed it. You said it exactly right. I mean, over time, that there just isn't enough sediment in the system north or south of here to deposit. And this is why this kind of discussion that we're having right now is why I think the proposed revetment is going to be the biggest point of contention on this project, because that hard structure solution we've seen definitely causes it damage the environment over time, right? But the damage is especially in this area with with the high energy, the big waves you get out here. At this point, since the damage is done, it's just about trying to hold that line, right? Protect the homes, hold the line, protect the toe of the seawall so that people can continue to live where they do. Beyond that, I mean, I don't know if these walls and revetments had never been installed 50 years ago. I do think it would be a different discussion now. It's just, and this isn't unique to this area too, right? This is happening in a lot of places in New England where we're seeing this in coastal zone management in MIPA. They're struggling with what they allow these projects to propose, and do they want homeowners to retreat? Do you want to propose beach nourishment projects where it's really just it's literally just dumping money into the ocean, every year, right? And there's not a single silver bullet that's going to be kind of amenable to everybody. So at this point, the town has really just been trying to hold the line and continue to reconstruct the existing structures and continue to protect the homes and the infrastructure behind it.
Just let me jump in. Just Amy, does CZM give you any review or input on this project? Coastal Zone Management is another entity in the state that we often consult with when there's concerns of altering this type of thing. Do they give any feedback?
They
on
will,
this?
Frank. So they will be one of the agencies that interagency comment. Taking a look at this at the next level up before we close out on it. So yes, we've got some comments in already, but so hopefully, I mean, if they've got something to say, they will. And I'm not so sure they're going to specifically talk about the sand issue, but they will talk about the proposed NOI that is in front of you now and implications that they see. So
Okay.
I see we could move on to the next person.
I think I just want to be sure. So we're not going to be closing this hearing tonight, Mr. Cass. So if you have some other comments, we're going to try to have a little bit more information. I don't know if there's something else before we move on to the next one. Is he still with us?
He is, although he's muted. So
Okay.
we can move on to the next person, which is Steve.
All right. Steve Bjorklin, can you unmute him for a minute?
Yep, I'm working on it. I don't have my glasses on, so okay, I see him. Okay, hold on. Ask to unmute. Steve, you're on.
Steve, can you?
How about now?
Yep, we got you.
Okay. I'm just curious, looking at the plans here, it's all pictorial view from the top. And I stepped out of the room for a minute, but did anybody show any cross sections of this from the beach up to the properties through any of the transects or anything that they show?
Yeah, we've got cross section showing on.
So that might
on
be
the plan
helpful to
set.
some of the neighbors that are out there to see, that portion of the plan. That's all.
I don't know if we can get those up on the screen tonight.
We have 3 different slides that we are prepared to show. I'm not sure if they have a cross section on the ones that we've got.
And that's fine if they do it at the next meeting, just so long as they could kind of understand, that view before you close the public hearing.
Actually, Amy, just move that one, or Jen, because that looked like the next one had a cross
Yeah,
section.
Yeah, there we go.
There it is.
That's it.
Okay, and that's something that's in the town hall that neighbors could look at close.
We have a file.
It
Yes.
is, and also they're available online on our website.
Okay. All right, that helps.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. We have anybody else?
No,
All right. Maybe I'd like, we want to continue this, and I'm not sure how much time is required. The other thing, just between Jeremy and Sean, is how long we can have these orders last for. I know that this is going to be an ongoing project and it'll be funding, subject to funding. So what's the longest time that when we do condition this, Amy, that we can have that condition for?
Typically, they're 3 years with, and we usually allow at least one extension. I've seen, not really, but I've seen 5-year orders go out, but I have not seen longer than that.
I'd just like to make this, who knows, luckily, hopefully there's funding available to get moving on this sooner than later, but I wouldn't like to do it for as long as, or consider that at least when we condition or we move this along. And I'm just wondering if there's any way that we can get some comment from Mr. Cassis. I hope I'm not saying your name wrong, but just in regards to the sediment or sand, I'm just wondering if there's anything else that we can give him for information that would help.
I can look for some sediment transport studies in the area. I mean, I know I work a lot with John Ramsey, and I know they've done a lot of kind of sediment transport work, and yeah, so I can look up that information and see if it's something I can provide.
That'd be great. We might also have some of that information when we permitted mine it for the beach nourishment project there. There may be some of that information in that, because that was discussed a lot about where did the sand go. So it would be helpful to be able to share some of that.
Yeah, sure. I'll look into it.
Okay.
Frank, we have another hand up on this project.
Okay.
One more comment. I'm gonna unmute Mike Westford. Mike, you should be on.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
We can. Good evening, Mike.
Hey, how are you guys? So quick question, just because I'm not great at reading drawings. So on the beach now, right, like say you're looking at 151 Turner where there's no revetment in front of it and it's actually sand, you're going to put rocks in front of that portion of the seawall where you fix it that are going to be 7 feet high and then drop 1 foot towards the water. Is that what the plan is?
Yeah, 7 foot high in elevation, and there is stone there. It's just covered by the sand right now, I think.
Okay.
And so yeah, the idea is to construct a revetment in front of the wall, starting at 7 foot elevation down to -1 with a 30-foot offset from the face.
Okay, so where it is, so say there's snow, well, or the rocks are covered by sand, you're now going to see that because it's going to go up about 5 more feet and go out further, right? So you would have to walk to get to the water. You're going to have to walk past those rocks or over those rocks to get to the beach.
Correct. Yeah, and you would see, so like probably only half of it would be above grade. So it would, of the 30-foot offset, at some point it would go below beach grade, right? So the seaward 15 feet of it would probably be buried. But yes, you would see stone up in front of that seawall as part of this.
Right. Okay. So at like high tide, there would be no, like there's barely any beach now. There'd be no beach because there'll be all rocks there.
Correct. That's likely. I mean, I need to cut a cross
I'm not
section
gonna hold
right
you
at
to
that
it
location,
exactly,
but
theoretically.
you have it about right. Yeah.
Okay, so theoretically, yes, with high tide, there'll be rocks because the revetment will be higher, then they'll cascade under the ground as it goes down. But you will be adding stones where there isn't stones now. Or
where you can't see stones now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
All right, that was
correct.
it. Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Anybody else?
Seeing none.
So how much time do we want to use before we to continue this? Sean or Jeremy?
I mean, does it hurt to continue to the next hearing, just so we have the option, and then I'll just make sure I kind of coordinate with Amy and communicate, and if we do have something to discuss, if we've got review comments in from any other agency, we can come on and discuss the next hearing. And then if not, I'll make sure I just shoot Amy a note and ask to be continued prior to the, before the meeting starts.
Yeah, you know what, let's, not the next meeting, but we could put you on the first March meeting. And
Okay.
trying to really get our continuances in control, Jeremy, just so you know, because we just
Okay.
have that much work that we're trying to process. And there's only so many hearings each Zoom meeting we can put on. So when we give you a spot, that's a spot somebody else isn't going to get. So
I understand.
yeah, I mean, that extra week might give that extra time for this interagency review to pan out. And you're right, if that doesn't come through by then we can easily move you to another one. It's just, we're trying to put a one number of continuances across the board because it takes away from other submittals, if you understand that.
Yep.
We do have two meetings back to back. One's 28th of February, and then the next one's just a week later on March 7th. And then the meeting after that is the 21st.
So do you want to continue this to the 7th?
7. Yeah. You want a
Okay.
motion, Frank?
Do we have much on the agenda for the 7th? Jen, any idea?
Starting to get full.
Okay. All right, so we had a motion from Penny. For
I make a motion, we continue 46 Oceanside Drive to March 7th.
A second motion from Penny. Do I have a second?
Second. Doug.
Doug, all in favor, Richard?
Yes.
Jen,
Yep.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Frank, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, Sean.
So number 7, the new Driftway, we have a request for a continuance to 3/21.
I'll make a motion to continue 7 Driftway to March 21st.
I'll second it, Richard.
Richard, all in favor? Doug,
Yes.
Jen,
Yep.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Frank, yes. Thank you. Okay. 16 Salt Meadow. We have John Zimmer.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
John
John,
Zimmer.
before you start, just Amy, do we have, are we expecting anybody from Norwell on this, or is this?
I can give you a quick update if that's okay.
All right,
Right.
let's do that.
Okay, we had our hearing with Norwell last week. Since we moved all of the proposed activities associated with the project out of Norwell and solely into Scituate, we actually withdrew the notice of intent in Norwell and will be refiling an after the fact notice of intent with them for the fill that was placed within the buffer zone. And then we'll be working through a friendly enforcement process with them for some additional restoration for some clearing that was done in the buffer in Norwell as well. So we're working through those two processes with the commission, but with respect to the proposed boat storage building, we withdrew that notice of intent. So there's no longer anything pending before them associated with the project.
Thank you, John. So why don't you go ahead and make your presentation, please.
Okay. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend the last hearing. I know there was some discussion. We presented the updated site plan, which, as I said, moves all of the work into Scituate. And in hearing the commission's concerns about the location of the boat storage building, we've actually moved it entirely, as well as any of the associated grading, outside of the 100-foot buffer. So right now, the only portion of the project that's actually within jurisdiction is a small corner, or maybe a third of the project, which is in land subject to coastal storm flowage. So right now, what we would like to do is to move forward with it as such. We're maintaining the no disturbance posts at the 50-foot buffer to ensure that there's no future activities done there, as well as committing to removal. There was an old tree house back there, and the folks who were on the site walk saw some of this. And old parts of a car and some additional debris that's actually within the 50 down towards the salt marsh boundary. So we're committing to removing all of that material as well. And then we'd also like to if the commission's amenable to it, move forward with an after the fact to allow the existing fill to remain in place. And, obviously this will become the new plan of record under the notice of intent. And continue it with the process in that fashion.
Amy, do you want to start or comment first, please?
I think you're on mute, Amy.
Sorry. Yes. So the moving of the building is a positive move as far as the project goes, but I am still considering that the fill that was placed in the buffer as something that should be discussed, is whether or not it should be removed or what you want to do there. And part of what Norwell, like the way John presented what's happening in Norwell, I more or less agree with, but I mean that yes, they pulled the NOI, but they're filing it after the fact, but it's all considered enforcement for them. And they are requiring all the fill that was put in there to be removed. So I'm just thinking that the fill, also some of the fill on our side probably should be taken out too. Or there should at least be a discussion about that. As far as the other concern that I have is total area of disturbance and impervious increase on the entire site, which is not just this building, but it's the entire site. So that would be the house, and any outbuildings on the property, just to make sure that there is not that trigger of the Scituate Stormwater Bylaw. And if so, then that would also be incorporated into any orders. So those are pretty much comments.
John, you want to speak to that first, and then we'll go to the members?
Sure, yeah, that would be great. The Norwell Conservation Commission as of right now is not requiring any fill removal, which is why they were amenable to us submitting the after the fact notice of intent for consideration. We've proposed some restoration, basically to compensate for the fill that's going to remain in place in excess of what was required for some of the clearing work that went on in there. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. Amy had sent me over an email regarding the stormwater bylaw. I did take a look at that. We are below the 15,000 square foot threshold, and we don't exceed the impervious threshold for a filing under that bylaw. I can provide information in writing to that effect if you need it. But I mean, that's basically where we stand. I mean, obviously, Mr. McDonough, wasn't malicious when doing this. As you've seen, at the site walk and through this process, I mean, we've been making a good faith effort to try to move this along and work with the commission to get all the activities outside of the buffer as far as we can, and commit to some restoration measures here to allow the fill to remain in place. I don't know the exact extent that was in excess of what was previously approved under the RDA. Looking at it from, if we came in with a notice of intent as a new project, I mean, everything is outside of the 50, this would almost be RDA type material. So I just asked the commission to consider that as well.
Let's go to some members. I'm trying to remember. Brendan, you were out at the site visit. Do you want to speak to this? It's kind of a little tricky, but they've sort of shifted everything away and more back, shifted it towards the home that was there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so, yeah, I think that's a positive move, for sure. It's, the question I'm kind of struggling with is about this fill issue, so. I guess I don't really have a question.
Okay,
Right,
let's work
yeah,
our
so-
way around a little bit and then we can come back to that. Penny, you were there, right?
Yes, I was. I just sometimes, and I hate to say this, but sometimes I wonder if we are gonna do more damage by removing. And it might just be better to have a lot of plantings put down where that fill went. I'm not exactly sure, to be honest, even when we were out there, where the fill was actually put outside of the 100-foot buffer. Or inside the 100-foot buffer, I'd say. Can anybody tell me exactly inside the 100-foot buffer, how much it was? Did it go all the way to the 50-foot?
It's about, I think, around 65 feet or so from the edge of the wetland. So, maybe 15 feet off the 50.
So it was off the 50 in the 100.
Correct.
Was it the whole back area there?
Penny,
No,
can you
if you look at
look
the
and
si-
see? Maybe,
Yeah,
John,
if you
maybe I
look-
can help her.
Okay.
If you look at that plan and you'll
Yeah.
see some close contours, they're like
Right.
14, 15,
Yeah,
16.
yeah,
I would say that that's the fill area. And so it doesn't get to the 50, it's probably 15 feet away
Yeah.
from the 50, but it's certainly in the 100 by about 30
Yeah.
feet or so. Am I right,
section,
John?
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, if looking at it holistically, I mean, the closest point is actually in Norwell. In Scituate, you're probably closer to 70, 75 feet away. I mean, that's semantics. I mean, it's all one resource area when you look at it, but with respect to your jurisdiction, it's a little bit further away.
Okay.
I might be more leaning toward just making sure it gets planted, well planted, and let Mother Nature take its course and stay out of there. Humans. Stay
All
out.
right.
Moving on, Frank.
Okay. Andy?
Yeah, I mean, I like that it's out of the 100, which is great. I was not at the last Norwell meeting, I guess, but I was at the one prior to that, and they were sort of all in on getting the fill out. Sounds like that may have changed. So I guess I'm asking, I guess, administratively, I feel like we should coordinate that, right? We don't want them taking out all the fill up to the town line and then just having it cut, I think, right? I think we should consider finding out what Norwell is going to do if we can, or somehow coordinating that. So this is a one cleanup with one plan to get it fixed, I guess, is my thought.
That's a good comment.
John, can you give the commission a little sense of what Norwell or what you're working towards with Norwell? It sounds like you're opting for mitigation over removal. Are you there yet with them?
We're actually pretty close with them. We need to submit the revised planting plan. We have a planting plan in front of them, and they had some comments on it. They wanted to see more trees than shrubs, since the area is growing back with a pretty good shrub layer. And they also, I mean, they were definitely, to Andy's point, they were definitely more amenable to allowing the fill to remain in place, partially for some of the reasons that Penny mentioned, was that it was going to be a lot of disruption to go in and to pull that fill back out. Whereas we had the conservation markers and the planting plan in place. The square footage is actually pretty small. When you look at it, it's on the order of, maybe 700 square feet. So I think that we'll get through that process with them. It's just, it's going to take a little time. The other option is that, if they do require removal of the fill, then, that is something, we could always come back and address with the commission. But my sense and my hope is that we're going to be able to move forward with a kind of a robust mitigation plan.
Okay, well, I think Andy's point is a good one. It's like it should be fairly consistent on both sides of the town line. So maybe that would be a good starting point. Jen?
Yeah, I had not necessarily thought about Andy's perspective there, and it's super valid, and would really want to make sure we're in alignment. Outside of that, I understand Penny's sentiment on the fill. I still wouldn't want it there, but I think it's something to consider. But again, alignment with Norwell would be guiding my opinion there.
Mhm.
Thank you. Doug?
Yeah, I guess that there are a lot of good points from everybody here. Do we have a sense of what kind of fill was put in? I mean, is it general clean fill? It's not, there's nothing hazardous in there or anything. I mean, I'm putting you on the spot, John. You probably don't know the answer to that, but
Well,
I don't know if we do have an answer for that.
yeah, Mr. McDonough's on the line. From being out there and seeing it, it looked just like basic straight, construction type fill that's used, in typical residential type situations.
Yeah, it's just dirt, rocks.
Yeah.
Never. So making that assumption that the fill is fine and it's not leaching out anything hazardous. I kind of agree with Penny. I think at this point, if you're offering a really robust planting plan, that extra vegetation, John, you're saying it sounds like it's already taken shape to quite an extent. I didn't do a site walk, so I haven't seen it, but it's taken pretty good shape as it is.
Yeah, it's pretty well vegetated. The areas that were cut over were basically just the trees, and Leo's actually gone back in and planted trees, before this whole process started. So between that and the understory shrub layer, it's pretty well vegetated. Amy, Leo was trying to talk a couple minutes ago, but I believe he was muted. Do you mind unmuting him?
Sure, no, I'll unmute him. Hold on.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I was just going to address Mr. Aberg's question about the fill. It is clean earth and rocks brought in by a big, construction company here in the South Shore, a local construction company, Farrell.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I assume that I wasn't in.
It wasn't bricks and
No,
tar and things like that. It was gravel or
Yeah.
something.
no, there's no, I think they call it REC, it's old blacktop. I don't have any of that. In fact, it's kind of populated with weeds and small in the summer, all kinds of weeds grow on it. And I've got over 3 dozen plantings already, but I'd be happy to work with the commission.
Yeah, yeah. So I tend to lean towards I am. I think Penny's idea of let's not cause any more damage. You're gonna have to dig that up, and then everything else that you planned is gonna have to take the chance to get reroute again. And it's more watching of that. I think it looks like maybe 3 feet at the highest point according to that plan. So just vegetate it.
Okay, thanks, Doug. Richard?
Yeah, I'm with Penny and Andrew. I think it'd be more damaging to try to take it out. I think it needs to be a coordinated plan, and I think that will be best served for everyone at that point.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anybody in the audience for this?
Raise your hand if you want to talk, if you're in a butter on this one. Seeing none, Frank.
No, we got one.
Oh, we have
Kathleen
one.
Palmieri.
Okay, hold on. Kathy's going to be on.
There, can you hear me?
Yes.
Kathleen Palmieri, 15 Salt Meadow Lane. I just have a couple of questions. This has been a real learning curve for me. I've looked up initials and what things stand for, conservation talk. I do have a question. Is the North River Commission involved with this at all?
Yes.
They have been. Okay, so they're notified. I haven't heard anything from them during the meetings. I've gone to, I've attended all the meetings. I haven't heard anything. I do see some irony. When we moved here about 21 years ago, someone asked me if we wanted to move there, and I said, why? And they said, well, because if you mow the grass, you have to notify the Conservation Commission. And now this has been just going on, for quite a while, lots of fill, the fill going in, the fill going out. I can only hope that the junk will be removed when the garage finally goes in, which I know it's not in your purview at that point, that we won't be looking at what's there now. And that's the purpose of the garage. Thank you. I appreciate being heard.
Thank you. Anybody else? I have one question, John. I'm looking at this plan. I see a building, but I don't see like any gravel area or a parking area or access to the building. How does that take place?
Yep, it's going to be coming in off of the end of Salt Meadow. I believe a couple of the trees that are showing up at the end of Salt Meadow would be removed to provide access to that area. So none of that work is located within the buffer zone.
But it would be within land subject to coastal storm flowage.
It would not be. It would be outside of that buffer as well. If you see the limit of the floodplain kind of comes around and goes to the building, so the access would come in and be up. You would basically come in, straight to the building off of.
Okay, but the driveway would be part of the site design though. And since the Conservation Commission is also tasked with administering and enforcing the stormwater bylaw, we're going to see all the areas that could be considered impervious as part of the that calculation. And then just reiterating a little bit of my comment, but also just trying to bring this back around so we can make it. But I would say that we want to stay on the same page as Norwell. I totally agree with that. And so let's get a revised plan with their proposal on what they want to do and call out the areas specifically for the plantings on the plan, maybe add the driveway. So I'm going to say continue it for a few weeks so they can get us a revised plan. When are you continued with Norwell, John?
Well, we have to submit. What was that?
Do you have a timeline with them?
We're going to be submitting the updated notice of after the fact notice of intent within the next week, probably by the end of this week. So we would be on their next scheduled hearing, which I believe is either late February or early March.
Perfect.
You know, I guess to that point administratively, they are also handling some of the work associated with the restoration through enforcement. Would there be any consideration to closing this notice of intent out tonight for the proposed boat storage building, and then moving forward through, you know, kind of a friendly enforcement on the issues associated with fill, since they're really not part of, that's really not part of the project anymore? And that would keep things in line with Norwell.
John, I don't have a problem with the plantings. Well, I'd kind of like to know what they are.
Sure.
Before we do close this out, and I do think it's important to have any other changes on this site be on the plan. I think that's one of the reasons that this project's gotten awry to start with, is we just didn't have much information of anything. I'd hate to close this and then have a bunch more clearing or something. I understand your point that some of this is out of jurisdiction, but it is a project, and typically any sort of project that comes before us would like to have an idea of the whole project and not pieces. I don't know that would be really that difficult, you know, if it's a gravel area that's going to be graded and or whatever. I think it's important that be shown on the plan. Amy, as far as stormwater, this wouldn't couple with already stuff that the house and what not that's on that other lot. I mean, this is
Would.
well,
No, it would.
but it's
It's
you know,
it's the entire site.
I understand, but just hear me out for a second, please. So we just had this discussion about 3A and the fact that there was a proposed change on a project that was still ongoing. I mean, there's been a house and a lawn and everything here for a long time. And
Yes.
and so now the work in front of us is the boat storage area and possibly a driveway or something going into it. And so I'm just not sure that they have to incorporate all the other the house and the other pieces on the property. I don't know that that's how I would interpret that.
Right, although at the town official level, I think that is how we interpret it, actually. And it looks to me, once we get all the information on the plan, that they should be well under the thresholds. I just want to be consistent among projects. And
Let's go back.
and
We got a
revised
couple.
plan.
Okay, we got a couple of hands up. Who do we have here?
Let's hear from Steve, because I have a feeling he's going to speak to the stormwater bylaw.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Actually, everybody's unraised their hands now, so.
Steve needs to be unmuted, I think.
Somebody unmute Steve. I know that goes contrary to what someone would like to do. But
Okay, can you hear me?
Steve's on now.
yeah, we got you.
You can hear me now? Okay.
Yeah.
I know there's been some discussion at the building department in reference to this particular lot. And I know where Amy is going when she talks about the lots merging here. The site that Leo has his home on is a completely conforming lot, meets all the zoning requirements. And in section 610 of the Scituate zoning bylaw, it refers to lot area regulations for dwellings. And he is not proposing a dwelling here. So if somebody has indicated that this lot is in fact merged, and that's why the stormwater would have to cover the whole site, I don't believe that's entirely correct. I think it can stand on its own, but you are correct that you do need to show the driveways and all that stuff to make sure that he's under the regulations, but I don't think he's going to get into any zoning issues tonight. That's all.
Thank you. Do we have somebody else? Leo?
Leo has his hand raised. He needs to be unmuted. Yeah, there you go.
Hi, good evening again. I can just touch on the driveway to show, to work with the commission. As much as a paved driveway would be helpful or handy for me, I'd be okay with, and I wanted to show, you guys were asking where it was going to come in from the street. Since I had to move the building before, it was a straight shot. But I'd be happy with keeping this kind of, is my mouse working on your? Can you
No.
see okay. Well, anyways, most of those little pines in between the building, the proposed building and the cul-de-sac, I put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those when I moved there 15, 16 years ago. Most of those should stay. The ones that are closer to it where the shed is would have to come down because I had to move the building, to the north. And again, I'd be willing to forego, the driveway, at least a paved driveway here and keep the permeable. Right now it's grass and weeds and dirt, which is just natural. That's always been there. And that's my plan, is to keep at least between the building and the street. I don't think I need, I don't feel I need a paved driveway, and even down the road if I need to bring in gravel, but I believe the commission likes permeable driveways, and I'd work with you as best I can right there.
I just think it would
That
be
makes
good.
sense. And I guess it has to be shown on the plan, so we'll do that.
Yeah, I think, Leo, if you can just show the area that you plan to clear and install gravel, and I think obviously gravel would be the preferred material at this time. If that could get added to the plan and we could get a sense of where they are with the mitigation for this, then I think that would be the way to roll if we could. And I don't want to.
Yeah, and have the plan be coincide or whatever, be the same plan that Norwell's looking at. Like, even though there's a town line down the middle, we should still see that what's going on, so we can be on the same page for consistency.
Okay, if somebody could unmute John, I think he's dying to say something.
I don't know about dying, but no, I just, we would develop a separate plan. I mean, it would be consistent with the plan that we're proposing in Norwell, but since it would have to be conditioned and, under the performance standards of Scituate, we would have a separate plan that would be implemented for Scituate, because we're going to have to do monitoring for both towns and reporting for both towns. So there would need to be some dichotomy between the two.
Okay. All right. How much time, John, do you need to revise that plan and get that? I know you're trying to move this along.
Yeah, I mean, we could probably get it in by the end of this week or early next week at the latest.
So where would that put us for a meeting?
I mean, if
7th?
Yeah, March 7th, and that way maybe they'll get comments from Norwell by then and have filed, if that's their timeline with them.
Okay.
Because we want to know that it's all consistent. So to put them on before they get feedback from Norwell, I don't think is great, unless we just want to touch base and maybe not close again. I mean, I think the next time we should hopefully be on
I'd like to be able to close this if we could at
Yeah,
the next
for
meeting,
sure.
if we have everything. So John, we have a meeting at the end of February, but then we also have a meeting 1 week later, the way things work out. So if we do the 7th.
Yeah, I
don't know.
guess the only question on that is if we get the restoration or the mitigation plan in, would you hold it up again for comments and revisions to that? Whereas if we could continue to that last meeting in February, just to discuss the mitigation plan, and then if we need to tweak it between then and the next hearing, we could do that.
Yeah,
Or
but that's
if
not gonna work though, John, because whatever, we've already set both of our agendas by then. So if you go on the 27th and it's not set, then you're gonna get pushed to the end of March.
Okay, yeah, we don't want to do that.
Okay, let's do the 7th, maybe stay in touch, see if you can get stuff in as soon as possible, and
Yeah, and
We'll try
if Amy's amenable, I'm happy to work with her through the restoration or the mitigation plan as well. So that we can come to hopefully get it to a point that you guys will be satisfied with it.
sounds good.
Yeah,
All right.
so we're looking for driveway to be shown, good limit of work, and then the areas of the restoration and any soil removal, like either graded in so that it makes sense in Scituate, or at least shown so that we can easily identify where the restoration is going. Because I mean, we do have a narrative of a bunch of plants that you want to put out there, but it would be helpful to know just where they're going and what the schedule is for that.
Sure.
Okay. Do I have a motion to continue? Anybody
Penny.
still out there, or did you fall asleep?
We're here. Was it the 27th we were continuing? What was?
The
that
7th.
I make a motion that we continue Salt Meadow Lane to February 27th.
No, March 7th.
Oh, sorry, March 7th.
Thank you. That was Jen. Do we have a second?
Second,
I'll
Andy.
Andy. So all in favor, Richard,
Yes.
Doug?
Yes,
I'm assuming Penny's gone to her other meeting, right?
I think so. I saw her wave goodbye a while ago.
Brendan
Yes.
and Frank, yes. Okay, great. Thank you, John.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks.
So 145 Jericho Road.
Oh,
Don't do that. On February 7th, 2022, 5:30 PM in the Town Hall, Situate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Situate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Brian and Melanie O'Neill for work related to raise and rebuild a single-family dwelling at location at 145 Jericho Road, Scituate. Excuse me, abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the virtual meeting will be available on the agenda posted on the website. So we have somebody from Morse Engineering.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We got you.
All right. So just for the record, my name is Paul Gunn. I'm a design engineer at Morse Engineering, here tonight to represent the applicant for the notice of intent at 145 Jericho Road for the raise and rebuild of an existing single-family dwelling. So the site currently sits a single-family dwelling with an associated paved driveway, raised decks, and lawn, gravel, and landscaped areas. The dwelling was constructed in 1930 per the assessor's card and rests in a FEMA Zone AE, elevation 15. There is also a vegetated salt marsh on the abutting property to the north, the 100-foot buffer of which covers the majority of the locust property. The site is not located in any NHESP zone or DEP zone A or 2 or an area of critical environmental concern. So the proposed work included in the notice of intent includes the demolition of the existing dwelling and the construction of a new single-family house. Similar to the existing dwelling, the proposed dwelling is to be constructed on a 10-inch poured concrete foundation. Though, in contrast to the existing dwelling, the proposed foundation will be tall enough to allow parking beneath the dwelling itself. A covered porch in the front and a raised deck in the rear is also proposed, though there isn't any proposed extension to the existing paved driveway. In regards to the resource areas, the proposed dwelling is set back slightly farther from the salt marsh to the rear, and there's no change in the actual topography of the lot, so we don't expect any negative or significant redirections of floodwaters. A staked erosion control barrier is proposed around the limit of work, and per a discussion had with Ms. Walkie on February 3rd, as opposed to this site plan, we will be extending that erosion control on the paved areas to the front property line, just so it encompasses the full limit of work. In addition, we're not proposing any alteration to the existing drive, so it'll be able to serve as a stabilized construction entrance for the duration of the project. And finally, the proposed concrete foundation is to comply with all NFIP standards, including the location and area of required flood vents and the elevation of the first floor of the dwelling. I believe that's all I have. I'll turn it over now to the commission for question and comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Doug?
Don't you want Amy?
Oh, yeah, Amy, sorry. Thanks, Richard.
Thanks, Richard.
You're welcome, Doug.
Saved me.
Okay, I'll be quick. So, let's see. Obviously, this is, it's a good project. Interestingly, there were orders already to elevate this house that was, built in like the 30s, because it did receive storm damage. This location does receive storm damage from both sides. No name storm and probably 78, I would say too, but it gets it not only from the salt marsh, also from the harbor, and elevating would be strongly recommended on piles if possible. I know they're proposing a flood compliant solid foundation, but we would probably urge that piles be considered. We can condition that the structural plans be reviewed by building commissioner and the agent, just to confirm that they meet the coastal requirements for building code for structures. I mean, they are changing soon. So depending on when this actually goes to construction, sometimes they go right away, other times they wait. The building commissioner may be needing to see a certain kind of foundation. We also talked about roof runoff and whether or not dry wells would be effective in this location, but shallow groundwater table, Paul was saying, which I totally get, that they probably wouldn't do such a great job since the groundwater is so shallow. Perhaps there's some other mitigation that could be considered, maybe a vegetated swale or additional mitigation plantings in the back, which is probably over time a bit altered on what is shown as the edge of the salt marsh. That's about it.
Okay. Do you want to speak to any of that, Paul, before we?
Yeah, sure. So just in regards to dry wells, the main concern we'd have with those is just their effectiveness, in that considering the elevation of the salt marsh and the groundwater table here, and just that it's also in a FEMA flood zone, those chambers are more likely to be inundated more often than not. So any storage or infiltration they'd provide would be pretty severely hindered by both the floodplain and the high groundwater table. So that was our main cause of concern there, was subsurface recharge.
Now, this is this project is being proposed with a foundation, but Amy's saying that she feels this house should be on piles. Amy, can you just elaborate a little bit more on, I mean, it seems like an area we've allowed foundations. I know
We have, although it's right on the cusp of where the next door neighbor's on piers. Although the house across the street, you guys did do, it was Analetto, it was 149, that's got a solid foundation. I think that was a Morse project, but it's just of note that pending, DEP regulation changes will have this house on piles. Most likely. So, I mean, for numerous reasons, including climate change and sea level rise, and just the overall storm damage and flooding that this area receives from storms, that, it's always best to go up on piles or some kind of piers. But because it's not a barrier beach or a coastal dune, building code requirement is really only just requiring 1 foot of freeboard, I believe. But I think if we put in the orders that, whatever that depending on when they actually construct, that could change, the actual foundation, and that would be at the discretion of the zoning enforcement officer who oversees our compliance with FEMA regulations for buildings. So we work together with them.
Okay. I remember having a discussion with some folks across the street and being familiar with this and seeing some of the houses damaged at a couple of different storms. The water actually fills in the back area and then flows into the harbor, and allowing water to pass underneath. I thought it was more important a little bit further down the street and across the street than this particular location, but.
Yeah, I think it's right in that cusp area, area, depending on the severity of the storm and whether, what kind of damage it's going to get.
Sure.
It gets it from both sides for sure.
Okay. Well, let's go to the commission. Andy?
I think I'm covered right now. I'm good.
Okay. Brendan?
I don't have any questions.
Jen?
I don't have anything now.
Doug?
Yeah, my only question was regarding the foundation, whether or not we can do a solid foundation or not, even with flood vents. But this is actually being elevated so they can use it as a garage. So that was not going to work with piers. So it's a significant change to their proposal if they were going to change that to piers other than walls. So I just didn't know where we were. I tell you what, I'm looking forward to DEP finally coming out with those bylaw changes to give us that kind of guidance, as I feel it like slightly too random that in, some places we allow it, and some places we kind of don't. So, but I think if it's allowed, that we really need to accept this application the way it is. I don't know. It would be a significant change, I think, if what are you suggesting, Amy, that we put in the orders that's subject to the bylaw pending? And then if that
No.
bylaw requires.
No, I'm just suggesting that we put a condition, which is what we did for the house across the street, that the foundation plans be reviewed before building permit issues to make sure, just double verify that they are consistent with applicable
Okay.
standards at the time.
Okay, I get
On
it.
the horizon, I mean, even today, I actually got dates today of when they're going out for public comment. So they're coming.
Okay.
In 2022, they'll be implemented, and they are land subject to coastal storm flowage and new stormwater regulations. So 2022.
Okay. All right. Thanks. I misunderstood. So thank you. That clears that up. All right, so, yeah, so the building inspector also will check that there is a required amount of flood vents per area and review that,
Okay,
so.
Richard?
I have nothing more to add.
Okay. I really don't think I have anything else on this. I'm just curious, Doug, where did you see that they're trying to put a garage under it? I'm just trying to,
Well, it says garage slab elevation 9.0 on the
Yeah,
plan, and
yeah.
he did say they're gonna elevate it height enough, they could actually get cars underneath, so.
okay. I'm just trying to figure out how you get them. Oh, like the stairs, I guess, are the old stairs.
Yeah, so those stairs in the front of the old stairs, that deck
I
doesn't have
see.
any stairs down.
Got it.
It's a raised deck.
Okay. All right, I'll take a motion to close.
I make a motion to close. Richard?
How about a second?
Second from Jen.
Jen, all in favor, Doug,
Yes,
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Frank, yes. Great. We close one. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you
Paul.
very much. Have a good one.
So, 162 Jericho Road. So on February 7th, 2022, during the 5:30 meeting at Town Hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Jane. Oh, no, sorry. Oh, you know what, Jen, I get two of the same ones. I can do this.
Sure.
Yep. Been doing it a while. So act on February 7th, 2022, 5:30 PM, the Town Hall Central Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 3077 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Richard Clauser and Martha Campbell for work related to an addition at 162 Jericho Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the virtual meeting will be available on the agenda posted on the town website. And we have Ross Engineering,
Yeah, I have Paul Marabito. I'm gonna unmute.
only for a bit.
Can you hear me, Frank?
We can. Good
All
evening,
right,
Paul.
thank you. Good evening. The applicant owns two separate dwellings on one lot at 160 and 162 Jericho Road. The subject of this application is 162, the smaller dwelling, which is just in from Jericho Road. This dwelling was elevated onto concrete piers in the last 2 or 3 years. And since that time, we have gone to the zoning board to seek special permit to install a proposed addition shown on the site plan that is before you this evening. The locus where the proposed work is to be done is in firm zone AE elevation 15. When the existing dwelling was elevated, the first floor was set at 18.5, which is 3.5 feet above FEMA and 2.5 feet above your local bylaw. The proposed addition will have the same first floor elevation of 18.5. The addition will also be constructed on reinforced concrete piers, similar to what's there at the present time. There's no change in the grades. The site's relatively flat. It's about elevation 11.5 to 12. There's no increase in the impervious area because the addition is going to be over the existing pavement that's on the site at the present time. We do show a proposed silt sock around two sides of the construction area. And there's no performance standards in land subject to coastal storm flowage, but the applicant is going to put this on concrete piers as opposed to a board concrete foundation. And he's doing that because of where he knows the actual floodwaters do occur in the bigger storms in this section of Jericho Road. So with that, I'll end and answer any questions the members may have.
Thanks, Paul. Amy?
Sure. Land subject to coastal storm flowage. Like Paul said, I think this one's probably our most straightforward project tonight. No DEP comments, no technical comments from them. We've got the structural plans in hand. Yeah, I don't have anything really to say other than I think you should, maybe we'll close if all the questions are answered.
Okay. Who wants to go first? Richard?
Not really. No, I don't have any real questions. I don't think. I think it is pretty straightforward from my non-engineering standpoint. No, I'm okay for right now.
Okay. Doug?
No, I'm not going to say a thing, Frank.
Wow.
I
Already
know.
did.
I know. It's happy birthday, Paul.
Oh, thank you. Merry Christmas.
Wow. Okay.
Oh, Doug, that's a surprise.
Do we know which birthday this is? Jen?
I have no questions and I do not know which birthday this is, but it's probably like 35.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Andy?
I'm all good on this one.
Brendan?
Yeah, I'm good. No question.
Do we have anybody in the audience for this one? And Amy, did you just say,
Saying none.
or Paul, that the foundation is just going to be the same as whatever's under the existing dwellings, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll let you get on with your birthday cake. I'll take a motion to close.
Don't
Make a
come-
motion to close.
That was Richard, a second.
I'll second it.
It's Doug, all in favor. Jen?
Yep.
Andy?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Paul, you should have come in with something more for your birthday. We might have been.
What's that, Frank?
You kind of wasted a simple project on your birthday. You should have come in with something a little.
It's not even his birthday. I just said.
Well, Frank, now that you mention it, there's a 72
Good
shopping.
night. Good night.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have an IDA on February 7th, 2022, during the 5:30 meeting at Town Hall. Situate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Jane Weintraub for determination of applicability to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands Bylaw for activities related to extending a deck and footings at a dwelling located at 16 Three Ring Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Access to information to access the meeting will be available on the agenda posted on the town website. And it looks like we have Mr. Ivas.
Do?
No, we have, it's
I was
been
gonna
one.
say, we've got Ben
Oh.
Weintraub on the line.
Oh,
Nick
all right.
Steve's on like some kind of a cruise in the Caribbean or something.
Yeah, right, which we help pay for. We're on 16th Three Ring Road. Our property is on one of the tributaries of the Gulf River. We have an addition, we have a deck that was built with our addition in 1988. It's currently 12 feet by 16 feet, and we want to expand it to approximately 20 by 18 feet. And there's a little diagram, as you can see there. We anticipate maybe 4 additional footings or maybe diamond piers. We We've been talking with various contractors about that, but haven't gotten complete plans from them as of yet. The expansion would be approximately a 20 by 18, or about 360 square feet. Where we did measurements based on Steve Ivis's plotting of the wetlands, as you can see on the diagram, and the footings would be approximately 53 feet away from the closest portion of the wetlands. There's a diagram of the deck that we're proposing. Any questions? Or, you know, I'll stop there.
Amy?
Yeah, you know, this owner has been very cooperative, and clearly, you know, he's had input from Ivis Environmental, and also done a lot of footwork on their own to try to use existing resources to make this project clear for you as a request for determination. But I mean, I do think that given the number of footings and the distance from the resource area, that it meets the requirement of a negative finding.
Okay. Brendan?
I don't have any questions at the moment.
Okay. Andy?
No, it looks straightforward, and I appreciate the measurement and the ability to see that. So I'm good.
Jen?
Yeah, I would echo Andy's sentiments. I think normally it is helpful to see a site plan, but I think this is minor enough. We can use our imagination.
Doug?
Did Steve actually hang flags, or did?
Yes, he did.
He did. All right. So
We have flags all over the place.
okay. So if we have any questions, a simple field visit could go and you can
Absolutely
physically see the flags. So that makes it pretty easy if there's any questions. So yeah, I'm good.
Richard?
Steve also sent a pretty lengthy narrative on it as well. No, I have no problems, no questions.
And we're lucky that he's on vacation.
He is a talker.
All right. I'm
Very thorough.
Yeah. Anybody in the audience for this?
I don't see any hands.
Great.
I think to Amy's point, with the minimal amount of disturbance, it's pretty obvious from the aerial picture, and where the wetlands are, I guess it would be good to have a dimension, but seeing that that's lawn and it appears like there's a stone wall with an opening that goes out to the marsh, I don't really see the point in requiring any more information. So I would take a motion.
Make a motion for a -3.
It's Richard. I have a second.
Second from Jen.
Second from Jen. All in favor, Doug?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
And Frank, yes. A negative determination is a good thing.
Okay.
All right. Means you don't have to go to the next step. So.
Right. Thank you.
Great. All right. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Orders of conditions.
This is where we need Penny.
No. So we have orders of conditions for 208 Chief Justice Cushing, 11 Gilson Road, 13 Hawthorne Street, 129 Glades, and 4 Garfield. Amy, you want to comment on any of these?
No, I mean, they were all distributed as far as for your review and reading pleasure, but I don't think any of them were particularly complicated. I mean,
No, they weren't.
208, CJC had a little bit of extra language woven in because of the stormwater. And we had a few thoughts on that, on like trees and stuff like that. And then 11 Gilson was a restoration plan. And septic, 4 Garfield
Raise and rebuild.
was a raised, oh yes, was a raised rebuild. I'm like, what was that? Yeah, and that one also had a little bit of special language, but I think it was all as noted.
Yep. So can I make a motion, just itemized, but all one motion for all of these?
I think that would be a
Yes.
good idea.
I'll make a motion that we accept the order of conditions for 208 Chief Justin Cushion Highway, 11 Gilson Road, 13 Hawthorne Street, 129 Glades Road, and 4 Garfield Road. To be accepted as written.
That's Richard.
Second
Do I have a
from Jen.
second? Second from Jen. All in favor, Doug,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
and Frank, yes. Great, thank you. Okay. Appleton Field Commercial Farming. Amy, do you want to start in on this since you and I were talking today?
Yeah. Okay, so I don't know if everybody received a copy of a possible license that we're trying to get together as a step to get commercial farming going out at Appleton Field.
Can I, just before you do this, so everybody knows, I think you're familiar, Andy's been trying to work with the folks that are out at Appleton to come up with a commercial farming license that we can give to them or get done so that they can move ahead with trying to grow some crops at Appleton Field. And true to form, anything with the town gets more complicated than it ought to. So, sorry. I'll add that as an introduction. How's that?
Well, right, so I mean, started out with TA, few comments, and then went to town council for comments. And so this is just kind of an update of where we are in that process. And I know that the license, like, kind of template came from another nearby town. So I mean, I'm sure it's not far off, but there were comments that were kind of broad that she made. So I was on the phone with her, trying to get through some of those. And I mean, basically, I think that, you know, there's just detail missing from, not necessarily from the license, but some of the clauses are not specific enough. And so the conversation, like my take home was that, first of all, it's the select board that is going to be the licensee. And then, is that right? And then the whoever, so they're going to be the ones entering into the agreement with said commercial farmer. But that they, Conservation Commission or the liaisons will need to, you know, sell this to them, so to speak, so that they're on board with what the vision for this farming is going to look like. And the license does not give enough detail as to like just what it is that we are entering into a license on. Like it was overly broad. So I think for the vision of the property just needs to be nailed down with like, you know, what kind of farming are we going to allow? Like, you know, I don't know, things like that, more details, a deed, a plan showing the location, access considerations, you know, that type of thing. The questions about the fee, insurance. And then also she's suggesting that that you'd really want to have your RFP spell out the detail. And then from that is what you're going to base your license off of. So maybe even the license would like reference, this other documentation so that it's clear as to just what the town is getting out of the deal that they're making with somebody. We did find out that, because there was more, a little bit of a concern, just whether or not this was acceptable use under the conservation restriction for the land, since it was purchased with CPC money. And we did confirm through Wildlands Trust, the CR holder, and through CPC that commercial use is allowed. But again, commercial farming is broad in itself, like are we talking chickens? Are we talking, like what exactly are we talking? And I think as far as like specifics, so it's this field down this access road, but how much of the field, is there any way we can hone in and like, just where their area would be? And if they do improvements, like what's gonna, is there exchange for improvements that they do, or is it clear, like if you bring stuff out, like sheds and fences, are you at the end of the term, does it stay with the property or does it go with the farmer? That
I would have thought of that.
Leasehold improvement stays.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those, I was thinking the most efficient way to probably tackle this would be maybe just like a short working meeting with probably not too many people, but whoever, I don't know who holds the vision for this farming operation. Like, I know it's not me. Like, I don't know, Frank, if it's you or Andy, or you guys share the same, or you've got other people that you've been talking to, but yeah, just a little more detail, I guess.
So I'm gonna let Andy jump in a second. I guess, the devil's in the details. It's a little frustrating when we try to do something, I think, fairly simple and it gets so complicated. But I also understand when I got on the commission, they had already leased the field to Van Buker with the pig tractors out there, which turned into a real debacle. And turned out that we weren't even supposed to lease something. It was supposed to be a license. So I know there's a little more to it. Just anytime I hate to say it, but you involve the attorneys, it just gets more complicated. And we don't want a problem out there either. But I mean, it's something that I've always seen as something we'd like to continue to have there. There's very little farm property in the town that's available anymore. Most of it's been developed, and now we're going to be the holders of a couple of decent pieces between Appleton and eventually the border street. So I think it's worth our while to get this sorted out and do it in a fashion that is positive for the town. And I think that's where I'm coming from, and I appreciate Andy's willingness to work at pulling this together, and I'd like to make it as straightforward as possible. I think your idea of maybe a few of us getting together is a good one. Just wondering where else we can garner some. We don't have to invent a new wheel. We could just take something that's been used, and I maybe elaborate a little bit on what we have. So Andy, why don't you go on?
Yeah, I'm happy to work on that. I mean, I think a lot of that work has been done, right? This is sort of like step 3 of the process, right? We went to the select board and presented this vision of community garden with commercial. And we really focused in on community garden and got that going. And this is sort of now revisiting the commercial. So, a lot of those like diagrams of the field and that sort of thing. We have, I hope it meets the standards of the lawyers and what they're looking for, but I think a lot of that is done. If we did, easy to kind of refresh people on that. Yeah, and I guess it would be good to hear the detail on what what we need. I mean, I think a lot of the advice we got from other towns that do this is keep it simple, like make it like they're going to do a service to the town and that they're going to maintain this property, keep the stone walls looking good and clear and the community garden up and running. And so you kind of put a low dollar value on the payment and focus it on pretty simple services and kind of keep it to a simple operation. So I think we can get there. I mean, the license that we sort of borrowed from was for a hay lease, so that is a simpler operation, right? You're just kind of letting it grow and cutting it 3 times a year, which is an option. But I think there's also an option here to get some local produce for town if we can get those details right. So I think we can get, if we can move this forward, I think we can get to something that will work.
Yeah, we have a tentative date with the selectmen for the 15th, which is next. So if you think we can pull it together by then, I really should know before Thursday or by Thursday noon, because I do have a placeholder for both this and the next item. Actually, is the next item even on?
No, but I
Maxwell
think
truck.
we mentioned it as an add-on,
Well,
so.
It's an ad. Yeah, that's an ad. But anyways, yeah, there's another open space item that, I mean, I guess, yeah, you're gonna be on their meeting, which is, pretty fast and furious, so you need to have the answers to the questions. Now, I don't know if it makes sense to try to roll in maybe a select board member to see if we can try to vet it to them before it goes to all 5.
I don't mind reaching out to 1 or 2 of the selectmen ahead of time to just give them a heads up as to where we're going with this. I'm wondering, it's 20 minutes of 8, and it really would entail mostly a discussion with yourself and Andy, me, and happy to have anybody else involved that wants to. But I'm wondering if we can find a time, maybe Andy, that's convenient for you, that you and Amy and I can chat some more. Amy can elaborate a little bit more on comments from town council, and we'll see where we see how we can get this ready to get in front of them.
Yep. Yeah, I think we can get things answered I just need to know what the questions are, right? If we have that list, hopefully we can get them answered.
Yeah,
Is
so
there
I'll get an email out tomorrow, Andy, and just to get you thinking, and then we can pick a time and decide whether next week is gonna work or whether we want to, actually, she wanted to put us on the March 1st meeting, actually, but anyways, we can talk about that.
Okay,
And
that sounds good.
moving on.
I just
Frank,
so
do you wanna
just
talk
because
about
we have the rest of the commission on board right now,
Yeah.
minus Penny, but I'm assuming that we're all in favor of utilizing Appleton Field for some farming thing. Is there anybody that disagrees with that?
Nope.
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 Okay.
Not me.
Take that as a yes.
If I can just do a very quick positive note, we have the CPC funding, and it looks like we have a fence contractor who can get to work putting a fence up for the community garden section, like in the next couple of weeks.
Awesome.
That's great.
Yay.
Wow.
But that is
That's
moving forward.
Thank you. Okay. So we'll do that. Thanks, Amy. Thanks for taking the time with the attorney today. So the next one is, recall that a lot of the property that was acquired along Bates Lane, Crosby, Damon, a lot of those were facilitated by the Maxwell Trust. And the folks, the Robbinses, Wayne and Cindy Robbins, have decided that their work is complete and they're in the process of winding down the Maxwell Trust, which is more complicated than you might think. But one of the things that they have is this, they've agreed to sell a parcel that they have at Cowings Cove in Norwell, but it's our aquifer, part of our headwaters for a the Herringbrook is gonna go to the town, and that got voted at town meeting. There's some money involved, and the town's gonna take that. They had one other small piece of property in the West End that was given to Maxwell that they would like to turn over to the town of Scituate. And unfortunately, it's kind of a little vague. It was owned by the Noonan family. It's probably in back of like 185 Clap Road, which is adjacent to property that I own. I've always known that it's out in back somewhere, but the deeds are vague. There's not any real plot plan. There's these parcels, which is very typical of land in the South Swamp. And so they're looking as a way to dissolve the Maxwell Trust. The cleanest way is for them to give this to the town of Scituate. And had a discussion with the town administrator, and he said he felt that that would be the cleanest way for them to do that. And he felt they could give it to the Conservation Commission, that we would accept it. And then we would get approval from the Board of Selectmen. And Amy's had a little discussion with town council on that. And I think there's a little difference of opinion as to how that would go forward. So I think what I'd like first is if we could just get a vote of the commission that we would accept this piece of property. And I can't tell you a lot about it other than as far as I know, it's primarily part of the South Swamp. It's a wetland. It's about 10 acres. Has 3 very vague deeds. If I sent these over to Doug, you'd laugh. And so, but it's still space that's part of the South Swamp and I think valuable. And I think in some ways we're doing them a little bit of favor by getting this off their books so that they can proceed to wind this out. If they don't give it to us, they could sell it, but it has to get appraised to sell it, and that gives them complications as well. Dissolving a trust like this gets involved with the Attorney General's office, and it's not simple. So if I could get, I guess, just maybe a head count of folks that are willing to either, well, actually comments first. Anybody, Richard, any thoughts?
No, my only question is if the Conservation Commission takes it over, what become the regular responsibilities of that?
Not much. We don't have to have a deed restriction like we do when we buy things with CPC money. So when you buy it with CPC money, you have to have like a third party holder of the property that oversees it and make sure that it's held the way that it was purchased, intended to be when it was purchased. We actually have care and custody of a lot of property in Scituate. Penny would be better vested to tell you than me, but I mean, all over town, there's people that have given up property and it's in care and custody of conservation. And it wouldn't be different than anything else.
Got it. Okay.
So,
no, I'm good. I'm in favor of it.
Okay. Doug?
Yeah, no, I think that I'm in favor of accepting the property for sure. Yeah.
Jen?
Yeah, no issues.
Andy?
Yeah, I think if we can hold it, we should.
And Brendan?
Sure. Yeah.
Well, that's what we want, some enthusiasm. Okay, well, I appreciate that. I don't know. Amy, do you think we need to take a formal vote of the commission to?
Might as well.
I think we just did.
Well, we went around, but I'd just say, could someone make a motion to vote to purchase or to accept
Move
the
forward with
donation?
accepting a donation.
Yeah, I need a motion.
I make a motion that we move forward with accepting the donation of land from Maxwell Trust.
I second it.
Second from Richard. All in favor, Doug?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Thank you. Okay.
Great.
move this along and get us out of here? You want to do?
So- CFCs, those are all waiting for signatures and ready to go. Various
We'll be over sometime tomorrow.
Yeah.
raise rebuilds, projects that are so old that the work has been done for very long. That's about it.
Okay. You wanted to ratify an enforcement order?
Oh, right. So I've worked up a couple of enforcement orders. One is 7 Dunbar with a letter that's just asking for what we asked for in the meeting officially, so that they know they can't just walk away. With no penalty assigned though at this point, but I did give a time frame of actually, I think like April 15th or something like that, thinking that the ground is pretty solid and it would be difficult to do that assessment because you're really going to need to do some set borings to figure out where it was filled. But it would be good to get some progress going. So I think that this makes sure that he knows that we're serious. And then the other 2 were for those Oceanside projects.
Oh, thank
And
God.
come up with a 1,500 on each for a penalty. And those are ready to go. So ratification of all those are something that's required, and that is by vote. So if you want to make a vote, probably you could just take it all 3 at once. 33, 43, and 7 Dunbar.
I'll take a motion for that.
I make a motion, we ratify the enforcement order for 33 Oceanside, 43 Oceanside, and was it 9 Dunbar or 7?
7, I think.
7 Dunbar.
Yeah.
So it's a
Second that.
motion, second from Richard. All in favor, Doug,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
He's muted.
Yes.
There you.
and Frank, yes. Okay, thank you.
Yay.
Okay,
Um,
awesome.
And then Penny, Jen, Paul Scott, and Howard Matthews and myself met out at the Damon Access property. We're trying to get the plans pulled together so we can get that out to bid. I think Jeff Hassett from Morse Engineering, working with Paul, have done a great job. It includes picnic area, accessible picnic area. And then they also have 2 other accessible picnic areas, one at Bates Lane and one at Crosby. And we're just trying to figure out how to put these bids together in hopefully a way that we will come in under budget. And so we're just moving that along finally, which I feel pretty good about.
Great.
And again, Paul's done a great job of kind of coordinating all that. So I think Penny's
That's
proud
good
of him.
news.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll have it.
Hey.
It's just going to be timing and whatnot. You know, it's everything's so busy and costs have gone up considerably. So we're trying to work at reducing those costs anywhere we can and still get a good project and finalize this.
Sounds good.
That's great.
Yep.
And I saw on the CPC agenda tonight that this is the night they vote on all those articles. There's like 9 or 10 of them, like good ones.
Awesome. Well, we're fortunate to have that for sure. Okay, well, it's almost 8 o'clock. Anybody have anything else?
I could make a motion to adjourn if anybody's interested.
I'll take it.
And I just
I
made it.
just put away my name sheet, but I think I should know everybody by heart here. So that was Richard, and I got a
Yeah.
second from Jen.
Yeah.
Yep.
So all in favor, Doug,
Yes, sir.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Frank, yes. Thanks so much. Have a good
Thanks,
night.
guys. Have a
Good
good
night,
night.
Thank
everyone.
you.
Night.
Have a nice night, everyone.